Hey everybody, it's your girl Bunny. To all of my returning subscribers, hey, how you doing? And for those of you who are new to the channel, welcome. Kick your feet up, subscribe to this family-friendly channel, and don't forget to click the notification bell so you don't miss any posts. Also follow me on Instagram at the same profile name so you don't miss the sneak peeks of what's coming up next. In this video, it's the return of the Emmy Award-winning show Atlanta, Season 3, Episode 1, entitled 3 Slaps. I give a full episode recap with photos offset to the side, and then I give my review at the end. No need to dig around and keep all of the minute marks in the comments. It's all coming up next. Two men sit and fish in still water. It's getting late and maybe they should call it a night. The black man shares a story of almost drowning in the same lake when he was about 8 years old. His cousin had to help him out. He felt as if he were being pulled. The white man explains that what you experienced was probably right. Maybe someone did try to pull you under. People drowned in that lake. There's an entire town underneath us. The lake used to be an entire town, houses, farms, and roads. The state government built dams and then flooded everything. It was a self-governed black town. It has to be why so many people die around this lake every year. It's haunted. Souls were probably trying to pull him in. They were almost white. White is not a color. It's not a real thing. There's no scientific base for difference. People just become white. Social. White is where you are when you are. There's enough blood and money in being white. Being white blinds you. It's easy to see the black man as cursed because you've separated from him. But you don't know you're enslaved. Just like him. Cold. Whiteness. You're hypothermic. You lose logic, you see the blood, and you think someone else is bleeding. Everyone is screaming for you to turn off the machine, but you don't hear them because you can barely hear yourself. We are all cursed too. Pictorially, the white man morphs into a creature with no sight or reflection of being human, and the black man is pulled underneath by black arms all around him. A child wakes up from a bad dream in class. The teacher announces to the class that there will be a school field trip. A trip to see the new Black Panther movie, Part 2. The young boy, Laquarius, stands up on the desk and dances, and everyone in the class starts to celebrate, causing disruption. Later in the principal's office, the guidance counselor enters herself, saying maybe that the advanced classes are too much for him, and maybe he should be switched to remedial classes. His mother isn't having it. There's no way he's being taken out of those classes. Other students just like him are disruptive, but you haven't suggested holding them back. Just place him in detention. In the hall, his mother scolds him about showing out in class. He may think it's entertainment, but when he gets older, the white people will laugh at him when he's dead or in jail. She also makes him do the dances again in the hallway, emphasizing his clown behavior. She tells him if he doesn't use his common sense, white people will kill him. Then the grandfather gives him 3 slaps across the face. When the counselor sees the slaps, she whispers to Laquarius in the hallway, "Don't worry, I'm gonna get you out of there." After school, he gets home and is bummed that the only thing to eat is leftover spaghetti for dinner, and he can't watch TV after acting up in school. A few minutes later, CPS along with police come to his mother's door. The mother thinks that Laquarius has called CPS on her and tells CPS, "You know what? Go ahead. Take him," because they got her effed up. She even packs a few clothes for him to take. Laquarius later arrives at a foster care home with 2 women as the foster moms. There are also 3 other black children present. Laquarius instantly notices that the house has a bad stench, and the 2 moms claim that it's not a bad smell. They're pickling Brussels sprouts. They even say that they're preparing a special dinner that he would like, fried chicken. They prep this so-called fried chicken by dipping the chicken directly into the bag of flour and then placing it into the microwave. The house is a mess, and there are bags full of random items all around the house. When he arrives to his room, a wash towel is monogrammed as Larry. They didn't know how to spell Aquarius, and plus Larry is easier to say. He asks for a hand towel to bathe, but they tell him just to use his hand. Later at dinner, the food doesn't look too pleasing, but the foster moms explain that this is good food. You're just used to foods that have a lot of chemicals. He can't eat the food because of the taste, and they tell him just to go to bed. But it's only 6 p.m. The next day, Laquarius is still hungry. All they had for lunch was celery and carrots. They let him know that you're supposed to feel hungry. If you're full, then that means that you ate too much. They tell him while working in the farm to sing a little song that may bring him some cheer, like, I don't want to work no more. The foster moms laugh, mimicking slave behavior. They then tell them to work faster because they have to get to the farmer's market. When they get there, they force the kids to wear signs reading free hugs. Someone even asks them, is Hugs your father? In a panic, Laquarius runs to a police officer telling him that I need help and he doesn't like where he lives. One of the foster women say that that's their son and they have other black children, and they always tell them that the police are friendly. The cop believes that this kid is just angry and maybe is upset because he can't play his PlayStation or something. Later, back at the home, there's a newspaper article showing Laquarius hug the police officer entitled Freedom Hugs, and an alleged quote from Laquarius reading, cops aren't so bad. He screams, I never said that ish. They have the children doing housework, painting walls, all types of odds and ends. The foster women then say, where you come from, they have a special name for you, snitch. A CPS employee comes by to review the home and environment. She reports that a neighbor requested a wellness check. She mentions that it's on file that they moved into the home 5 months ago, but they can't find record of their ownership or leasing. The CPS worker notices that same stench in the house and sees a small girl that appears to be sick. She also sees blueberry juice all over her face and clothes, and the foster moms say that it's blueberries. It's like medicine. She requests a washcloth, but they don't have one. Laquarius lets the CPS worker know that he's really hungry and he wants to go home. The CPS worker says, don't worry, I'm going to get you out of here. Then one of the foster moms asks if she can speak to the CPS worker alone. When she returns later, the CPS worker is nowhere in sight. Later that night, he has a bad dream of the CPS worker's head in a jar being pickled and a dog with his grandfather's body and his mother's words ringing in his head, these white people gonna kill you. When he wakes up, the foster moms tell the kids that they have to get dressed quickly because they're all going to the Grand Canyon. Before leaving, he notices bags stacked outside and even the clipboard that belonged to the CPS worker. The children in the van have a non-verbal communication. These white people are gonna kill us. Igga we know, sweet release, and my hair hurts. Even the dog looks stressed. When they reach the woods, they release the dog into the wild. They think they're doing what needs to be done for the children. They discuss between each other, if we let them go, they'll run rampant in the foster care system, and they need to be with us. They even later check the van, and it appears the kids are still sound asleep. The women whisper, there's no looking back. It's obvious from this point they are trying to end their lives along with everybody else. They speed quickly as they approach the lake. When she pulls back the covers, the dog is present, and Laquarius jumps out the back. The two women crash into the lake, and there's a long walk back home. The key is under the mat, and he starts washing the dishes. He even asks if there's spaghetti in the refrigerator. His mom welcomes him back home, and he watches on the news that the other children were found in the forest, apparently abandoned by their foster parents. Slow creaks on the floor approach from behind, and later, Ernest awakens up in a daze, confused, next to a white woman, and that is the end of the episode. And now it is time for your favorite part of the video. That's right, my review. So season 3, you guys, is starting off with a bang. Absolutely phenomenal. The writing is just to another planet. Just this episode alone could be Emmy Award winning. The writing for this, Glover, amazing job. The director of this, absolutely amazing. We have so much to dissect in this literally about 26-minute episode. You know, it's a half an hour, but if you exclude the commercials, there's so much that's just in this short time frame. So since there's so much to dissect, let's just start with the obvious of this episode, that it's dedicated to the children, the real story of the Hart family. Now, this episode was inspired by the true story of the Hart family, a married couple, Jennifer and Sarah Hart, who killed themselves and their 6 foster children March 2018. So Devonte Hart, a black boy from Houston, was killed alongside his adopted siblings and mothers. Much like L'Aquarius, after Devonte's mother was deemed unfit to take care of him, he and his 3 siblings went to stay with their aunt in Houston, and they were then placed into the foster care system. In 2009, they went to the home of Jennifer and Sarah Hart, a couple from Woodland, Washington, and the bodies of his adopted mothers, Jennifer and Sarah, were found in the driver and passenger seat. So after this crash, the child abuse allegations began to resurface of the cases and the wellness checks from neighbors. All of those files started to come up. It was later determined that Jennifer was intoxicated with a blood alcohol level of 0.102, while Sarah and the children had large amounts of generic brand Benadryl in their system, along with other drugs. This episode was a dedication to Devonte, without a doubt. Siblings Jeremiah, Abigail, both were 14, and then we have Marcus that was 19. They were found dead in the crashed SUV the same day. I think her name was Sarah, 12. She was found weeks later at sea, while Hannah, 16, was identified after a foot still in the shoe washed up on the beach, according to an Oregon newspaper. Now, Devonte Hart, 15 years old, a black teen whose image went viral when he embraced a white police officer in 2014 at a protest in Portland, Oregon. And unfortunately, Devonte was never found after the crash. The murder-suicide shattered this image of this perfect family that shed this light on these terrible parents, right, that had fallen under this evil scrutiny. 1 year later, after the tragedy, it was widely reported that Washington authorities opened up an investigation with all of the complaints from the neighbors, and seeing certain punishments and even withdrawal from food even being a form of punishment. Neighbors said that Hannah Hart jumped from a second-story window from the home, begging for help from the neighbors, according to the incident reported by People magazine. Now, in 2018, Devonte began asking neighbors for food, telling everybody that they were deprived of certain things, and they even went to the point where the 2 mothers went to court, but the case was dismissed. And then they went home, and 3 days later, they were all dead. According to People magazine, when Abigail's body was found, she was covered in bruises, indicating child abuse. The special inquest by the coroner deemed that this was, of course, without a doubt, murder-suicide. There were no skid marks along the road. There was none of that indicating that this was maybe an accident. It was planned. It was really, really sad. So this was a dedication. So in this episode, there are a lot of symbolisms when it comes to maybe what the kids were thinking. L'Aquarius in this episode maybe having this redemption and superhero aspect of getting them out of there. It's just a very haunting real story about Devonte and the entire family. Feel free to Google that and look that up. It's really, really sad. But those pieces in there clearly shining light on their real life situation. One thing I love about this series is that if you're unfamiliar or uneducated about a certain thing, that it makes you want to research. It makes you want to understand what's going on. It starts debates. It starts conversations, and maybe things that people have forgotten or maybe didn't receive as much media attention as it should have. This episode, without a doubt, is one of those things. And like I said, there's a lot to dissect. So let's get to the first scene. We have the gentleman fishing, and there are true stories of cities, prosperous black cities being flooded by the government. You research these facts. It's very disturbing. Many descendants are to this day are suing certain areas and saying that this belongs to my family. There were nationwide black massacres all over the place and floodings of black towns. The Tulsa massacre was even mentioned in season 1 of the HBO's original series Watchmen. And also make sure to review those recaps and reviews of that first season, which I thought was wonderful. I'll make sure to put the link below. So American history is this flooding and massacre of black towns that were, after flooding and the massacres happening, cities built on top of them, as if it was just, wind and it just nothing happened. Another example, we could talk about Central Park in New York, how this was a prosperous town, hundreds of thousands of stores and black people that own that area, only to be taken away. And now it is Central Park. It's forgotten, the silent disruptive of this quote unquote idea of whiteness, and how it biologically means nothing, but it's this idea of this separation. It was beautifully written. Although this design of quote unquote normal life, the development of this American dream being for not a thought of people who come to the country or people who were stolen slaves and brought to this country. It's very obvious that the American dream was formulated only for a certain group of people, because when there is this grasp and touch and development and success of this American dream, it's taken away. Let's talk about the school scene. So the school behavior approaches, right, children based upon ethnicity. Instead of working with Aquarius, he's recommended to go to remedial class. It's a suggestion of the capacity of one's learning. With that approach have been taken with a white student. The behavior and school performance are two different things. Behavior and school performance are two different things. The mom and the grandfather's reaction is a generational reflection as well. His mom telling him about the realness of the world. He's in this white world and he's being silly and he's being mocked and other people in the class are cheering him on. But the clown behavior is that you're constantly under this microscope. Not only if you do something crazy, but you're like, in a sense, representing your entire race, which is sad. But I mean, it's just the way America views people of color. The story of being in a classroom setting, everybody else is being disruptive. He's on the desk and he has this repetition of being pretty much just, he's asleep, he's not engaged. And I'll just share a story of what happened to me. So I've always been, in PWIs, schools where predominantly white institutions, predominantly white schools. And this story, just like a light bulb, I was never disruptive, but I was always bored. And I remember when they suggested, well, she's bored and she's just sitting there, come to find out the work was easy for me. The work was easy for me and I would finish my work so fast, I would just kind of sit there waiting on what was next. And I remember being the student and the only black student in the class, and I would actually be the one that would break the curves. I would be the one that didn't, the curve had to recreate it because I was making hundreds and 99s and 98s on tests. And instead of saying, okay, this person needs to be in an accelerated class, I remember the teacher telling me, you're cheating. I think you're cheating. And I was like, well, I'm not cheating in the class. And I remember several times she made me take tests over with her watching me. And I remember telling, my parents about the situation. And, of course they were upset, and it makes you feel shameful. Like I'm being punished for being smart. Once they saw what was going on, I wasn't cheating. I was just a smart student. And, they demanded that I would be into these advanced classes, and she's bored because she's too smart for this class. I graduated high school when I was 15. I was actually 14 going on 15 years old. So I graduated very early. So it was just the shame behind it. It was the making me feel bad for feeling smart and not even, taking my word for it. She would make me take tests over and over again. And so clearly there was something going on with that. But I just, when she said, don't take them out of the advanced class, it was kind of like that approach. Now let's talk about the grandfather. He knows the physical punishment, the slaps, right? There's very minimal verbal exchange with the grandfather and the grandson. The pain connecting to something, right, is generational. A lot of older black generations lacked this emotional connection when it comes to kids, when it comes to grandkids. So you talk about slavery, you talk about pain, connection, punishment, that silence, that emotional absence. That's all just in that short scene. It's just, yeah. So when we talk about the foster home, this identity of taking and adding, she says, well, I can't pronounce your name, so let's just say Larry. It's easier to say and it's cool, right? This foster idea of white is right. Right? White is right. This is where you need to be. Is better off. I mean, we even see that in the late 70s, early 80s with a lot of shows with different strokes, Webster. There's so many other shows like, oh, you're in the ghetto, so let's bring you in here in this situation, not thinking that a lot of things that are brought into Black culture, drugs, violence, are introduced and thrown into the ghettos, and now it's just like you're fixing it, thinking you're going to put me with a white family or put somebody with a white family. It's just, like I said, that could be an entire Harvard class. Okay, now let's talk about police enforcement. We have this scene where he runs to the police officer saying, help me. And if you notice, he reaches for his gun, and this is a little kid. He automatically reaches for his right hip when the little boy comes to him, and he says, hey, I almost shot you. That's just a lot saying it right there. So there's no safety in police enforcement, that you're a person of color and you don't even feel safe asking a police officer to help you. It's a lot in that. The essence of not feeling safe anywhere, this being trapped. Absolutely amazing writing. There are a lot of things within hip hop. I know that Tupac would say, I always thought we had it rough, but we always had enough. I remember Marvin Gaye used to sing with me. He had me feeling like black was the thing to be. It's this connection. So when we walk outside of that, not only is it that others don't understand us culturally, the washcloth, right? Which I thought was hilarious. No, just use your hand. That's a cultural difference right there. What he's wearing to bed, what he's eating, all of this disconnect, but still this is quote unquote the best place for you. Now let's just be honest. There's stuff to take accountability for within this episode as well. The mom maybe and the grandfather taking different approaches and communicating with the boy and making sure that things are communicated well. So there are errors in that. There are generational things that also need to be changed in order to connect with children more. There's just this emphasis in them growing up too fast. He's coming home, he's cooking his spaghetti, he's, that presence of where's the motherly presence of warmth and love. It can't always be about discipline. It has to be that aspect of love thrown there. We know that the mother and the grandmother care, but there's obvious this emotional disconnect to where when he goes to school, he feels lonely. When he's watching TV, eating dinner, he feels lonely. It's just a lot, you guys. I can go on and on about this episode. Amazing writing. You guys stay tuned for episode 2 for that recap and review that's coming up next. In the meantime, in between time, remember, check out those other shows in either the description or the pinned comment. I'll make sure to put the details below, and make sure to check out Watchmen if you didn't watch that first season. Very, very beautifully written. I hope they come out with a season 2 soon. I know they weren't approved for a season 2, but maybe they might change their mind. I don't know. I don't think a lot of people understood it, but I made sure to dissect all those details. So y'all make sure that y'all check out. Y'all stay tuned for episode 2 and 3. In the meantime, in between time, take care of yourself and each other. Bye.